Hello there, and welcome to the Second Life Book Club. My name is Draxtor Dupre, and today on the show, Jeffrey Ford, prolific writer. His short stories, I think, according to Wikipedia, account to over 130 short stories in various anthologies and his own collections. He is all over the place in the best possible term in terms of genres, and we'll introduce him in just a few minutes. But to get a taste of his oeuvre, I decided to bring back my son Kaleo, who is sitting right next to me here, the robot punk, and he will read just the first page of three short stories from Jeffrey's collection, Crackpot Palace. It's a 2012 collection, and the first one, Kaleo, if you will, please read us from a story that is called After Moreau. I just hope everybody know the what Moreau refers to, the island of Dr. Moreau. Here we go.
I, hippopotamus man, can say without question that Moreau was a total asshole. Wells at least got that part right, but the rest of the story he told all wrong. He makes it seem like the doctor was all about trying to turn beasts into humans. The writer must have heard about it third hand from some guy who knew a guy who knew something about the guy who escaped the island by raft. In fact, we were people first, before we were kidnapped and brought to the island. I was living in a little town, De Sioux City on the coast in California. Sleepy doesn't have to describe it. I owned the local hardware store, had a wife, two kids. One night, I took my dog for a walk down by the sea, and as we passed along the trail through the woods, I was jumped from behind and hit on the head. I woke in a cage in the hold of a ship. People from all over the place wound up on the island. Dog Girl was originally from the Bronx. Monkey Man #2 was from Miami. And they snatched Bird Boy in broad daylight from a public beach in North Carolina. We all went through Moreau's horrifying course of injections together. The stuff was an angry wasp in the vein and bloated me with putrid gases, made my brain itch unbearably. Still, I can't say I suffered more than the others. Forget house of pain. It was more like a city block. When you wake from a deep, feverish sleep and find your mouth has become a beak, your hand a talon, it's terrifying.
And that's from Jeffrey Ford's story After Moreau, and we'll get a little taste now from a story called "The Double of My Double Is Not My Double." Kaleo, thank you for reading. By the way, later Jeffrey Ford will read us from a unpublished story from an upcoming collection that's coming out in March. So stick around. Kaleo reads well, but Jeffrey, he's the real deal. Now, here is an excerpt from "The Double of My Double Is Not My Double."
I saw my double at the mall a couple of weeks ago. I was sitting on a bench outside a clothing store. Linden was inside, checking out the sales. My mind was pretty empty as I watched the intermittent trickle of shoppers on their way to something else. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed a person sit down next to me. I turned and saw who it was and laughed. "Hey," I said, "how's business?" He was dressed in a rumpled suit and tie, and he looked tired. Trying to catch his breath, he sat back. There was a weak smile on his face. "Double drill," he said. Knowing me, I wouldn't think there'd be that much to it, I told him. His eyes half closed, and he shook his head. "You must be at it all day," I said. "And into the night," he said. "On top of all of it, I've had to get a part-time job." "You're moonlighting as my double?" "I'm dipping things in chocolate at the old-fashioned candy store on Stokes Road. 4 hours a day for folding cash. Remember a couple of meetings back after we started talking, I told you I was living in that giant house out by the wild animal rescue, the last cul-de-sac before the road turns to dirt? The mortgage on that place is crushing." "Huh, and I thought you were living with like 4 or 5 other doubles, splitting the cost," I said. "Yeah, but my double salary isn't cutting it. Dipping things in chocolate, though, that pays extraordinarily well. I make $100 every 4-hour session." "Huh, that's pretty good. What's your dip?" "You name it, I'll dip it. It started with fruit, and by the time they brought in the first steak, I knew it was gonna get out of hand. Finally, the old Swedish guy who runs the place took off his shoe and handed it to me, a chocolate loafer. After I fished it out and it dried, he and his wife laughed their asses off.
All right, Khalil, thank you. Well, Khalil has a great voice. It reminds me of my own, but he's my son after all. I think we'll leave it there. We'll end the show with another little one if Khalil sticks around. But I do want to get to Jeffrey because yeah, he is the guest of honor. Now, very briefly, just thank you, team. Little quick housekeeping notes. Let you know the stuff that you may already know. The show is produced by Strawberry and myself. This venue, the Book Club Island, is originally made by Patch Linden and the Moles, but customized by Arden Schwartzman, Marianne McCann, Arieto Chiori, and AJ McDowell. They make props, they make special little gimmicks. Silas Merlin is also part of this team. The avatars are customized by Kralos, and the super custom from scratch avatars are made by Silas Merlin. And now I would like to welcome to the book club Jeffrey Ford, author of, as I mentioned, 130 stories, winner of the World Fantasy Award, I think three times. We're going to verify that. He's currently teaching at Ohio Wesleyan University, and his forthcoming anthology of his own short stories is called Big Dark Hole. Jeffrey, welcome. How are you?
Good. How you doing, Drax? It's good to see you.
How do you like your avatar?
Oh, I love it. I was we did this for the anthology that Anne Vandermeer did. I love it. It's great. It's steampunk, but that's not really the kind of writing I do. I think it was a misinterpretation of a particular story that was on the cover, a picture of it on the cover of a book. But you know
Exactly.
what?
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what? I dig it. I dig it. So I'm staying with it.
I just read this one story from the Anne Vandermeer anthology, the Avatars Inc. And then I was like, oh, I got to invite Jeffrey. This is so cool. And then I looked at the cover. And by the way, the book, if the camera can zoom into the book on the table here in front of us, it's on the cover of the Best of Jeffrey Ford. And I go like, wow, this looks like a little bit steampunkish vampire, one of the art dummies. And then you came in and you said, I'm not really a steampunk guy. I read Heinrich Böll.
No, I mean, but the picture on there is actually from a story called Daddy Longlegs of the Evening. And what's happening in that is that there's a kid and a spider crawls in his ear and eats through his brain. And then when it's in the center of his brain, it rewires his brain and then plays him like a zither and controls the body of this guy. But what it's happening there is the flesh and the head's opening up so that you can see the spider at the center of his mind. That's basically what's happening. Whether that's what you got or not, I don't know.
Oh my God. I mean, can the audience hear us well? Strawberry here says in the audience, oh my God, that's traumatic. Eesh. That is why I don't like spiders, says Angelica. Everybody is
Well, don't read
so
this story.
no, Jeffrey, you probably just made 20 new customers who are ordering a book right now, or people who will never read anything that you
That's
produce.
right. That's right.
I
That's right.
I'm really I told you before, I mean, I'm blown away by the stylistic diversity. You often get compared on the blurbs. People mention Kafka, the darkness and sort of the dreamlike atmosphere that people are sort of caught up in a nefarious situation. Well, with spiders crawling into people's ears and stuff like that. Do you feel comfortable with this comparison? I mean, it's certainly, I guess, well-meaning, but it could also maybe lead people the wrong way because I think you have. I mean, I read a lot of Kafka. You have way more humor. I mean, Kafka is funny too, but you have way more humor in it, I think.
There's a story I wrote called Bright Morning where Kafka's ghost comes to me at night and like he's pissed because people say I write like him, but he doesn't see it. So he ends up kicking me in the nuts. And that's how the story starts. And it's about this lost Kafka story. That's how that story begins. But yeah, I mean, yeah, the people used to compare me to Kafka and all these other people. You know what the thing is? When I got into this quote unquote genre, these genres, I never thought about them as anything but literature, because when I
Yeah.
was going to school, the literary writers were people like my teacher, John Gardner, with Grendel, and like, some of his more fantastic stuff. Uh, Pynchon, John
Hmm.
Barth, Angela Carter. That's when the magic realists like Garcia Marquez came into
Yep.
the U.S. So that's the stuff I was reading in college when I was first starting to get my legs as a writer. And so when people tell me this isn't literary stuff, I mean, I don't get it. You know
Mm.
what I mean? But then when I got in the genre, people wanted me to pledge allegiance to the genre in some way, and it just
Ah.
like, and I just wanted nothing to do with it. I don't really want to be cataloged. But you know what the thing is, market wise, it's not the best thing to not be pigeonholed.
Yep.
You know what I
Yep.
mean? Because
Yep.
people then don't associate you with any particular school of writing or anything, and or any particular classification. For some people, that's a big problem. You know.
But that gives you a lot. Exactly. This is so fascinating to me because when Matt Ruff was here, we talked about a similar thing, and what you're describing here. It can go. You can get kicked by both camps, right? The literary people go like, yeah,
Exactly.
this is all genre, and then the sci-fi people go like, that's not sci-fi enough. There's not 20, 30 pages of a description of an engine.
Well, the thing is, when I was coming along then, at that time period, let's say like in the 90s, right? Um, then I had compatriots, Kelly
Hmm.
Link, Jeff Vandermeer, Michael Sisko, all these people who were dealing with literature in the same way that I was approaching it. So it wasn't like I was alone. But here's the thing: I'm not making $1 million writing this stuff, so I want to have a good time myself and try different things and continuously improve my writing or change things in it and so forth. So I'd rather, I mean, I don't really have, I'm not making tons of money. I have made considerable amount of money doing it, but it's worth more to me to be able to write the stories that I have it in me to write.
Right. This is probably the best advice that you could give young folks is don't make the mistake to, pander to something and then not even get paid well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Never
Because
run
if
with the
you want to
pack.
pay, if you run with the pack, then
You'll
at
always
least
get
make
left
sure you get,
behind.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, some people then at the front of the pack they get paid well. But what I'm saying is, if you the worst of both worlds is you're trying to appease or pander to a certain audience and you're still not getting paid. So you might as well go completely nuts and do your own thing. I mean,
Well, the piece
eh,
that the piece that Kaleo read, the first piece, "I Hippopotamus Man." I was
mhm.
talking to some writers one night, and they said to me like, "That's the craziest thing, I Hippopotamus Man." You got a lot of balls to write that. And I said to him, "Look, you know what? That's when I was selling tons of stuff. I mean, I was selling everything that I wrote. And I said, look, how many years is it going to last? Like where I'm going to have this ability to do this? I'm going to stretch it out. I'm going to like take chances. I'm going to do crazy stuff, while I have the opportunity."
That is awesome. So you grab the moment there where you realize people want to read my stuff and you just submit it. But is that really something that people would reject? I don't think it's that crazy. I think that story is brilliant. But
Well,
I'm not in this business, so this is fascinating to me as a reader. Why would somebody reject that? I mean, it's so funny. You're basically, the island of Dr. Moreau. We all know the basic story. H.G. Wells, it's this island, but basically, in your story, these people all came from normal, um, lives, and they were sort of abducted into it, and they have this weird relationship with Dr. Moreau. It's a very short story, and uh, yeah, it is crazy.
the writer Nick Mamadas published that when he was an editor at I forget the name of the damn magazine now. I forget it. I'm sorry.
Nick Mamadas is coming next year, actually. He's
Oh,
coming
is he?
on,
Nick's
yeah, he's coming.
he's a million laughs. I He'll make some trouble for you.
Oh boy, we may have to have sort of a a delay on the audio.
Now
Um,
he's a good guy. He's a good writer too, actually.
I'm getting into his stuff. Stella here asks in the chat. So I want to remind people that I'm monitoring all the various chats. So if you have a question, I will weave it in, and if I'm not answering it, just repost it. So maybe it went by. Stella asks here, Jeffrey, do you feel your flair with short story writing helps you in dialogue and storyline movement? Hmm.
Um,
Well, I mean, writing dialogue and storyline movement is those are two
yeah.
important skills.
No, I
They're
get
all
that. Yeah, I'm wondering which came first. I I don't know which came first. I mean, I spent a lot of years writing a lot of crappy stories, but I guess what happened was I started, reading writers who were good with dialogue, and I started listening. I mean, that's one of the key things is just going somewhere or being by myself on a train or a plane and just sitting there and listening to people's conversations. There's a certain music to them that I found, and it's never takes too long before somebody says something that could spark my interest into writing a story about or to begin a story. So listening
right.
is one of those key things you need to do at the beginning when you start out writing.
And you have you there's a lot of stuff, and I want to get into this later because you in this Palace anthology, there is a lot from your own life, I think, and it's your real life wife is in there too, and some of the stuff is hilarious, like the story with well, the smartest man in the world. I mean, that is crazy. That is Marquez and Kafka rolled into one.
That's
But yeah,
86 Death Dick Road.
there we said it. Hold on, let me actually, since we're on this subject, I have a slide and I'm bringing it up uh, in the on the panel behind us. And after every story, like other writers do, I've seen it before, but with you, I find this even more compelling because you write a little blurb what inspired that particular story. And in 86 Death Dig Road, this is just so strange. Your wife in the story, or the narrator's wife, Lynn. I mean, Lynn appears. Is your real life wife named Lynn?
Yes.
Interesting, huh? See, I figured this out. Um, so you guys are going to some weird, sort of semi occultish event, I guess, with a guy who calls himself the smartest man in the world. And I want to read this here, what you write about your inspiration for this. A lot of writers disparage suburbia as a bland, numbing wasteland, but oh, the drama that lurks there, the surreal antics and machinations. This story was spurred by a New Year's Eve party I reluctantly agreed to attend. After I arrived, I found out that there would be no alcohol served and that the order of the night was card games. There was a there was a particularly horrid giant painting of the Mech mansion we were actually in. So, do I read this right? So you go into this mansion, and then inside the mansion there is a painting of
Of the
the same
mansion.
building
Yeah.
that was
Well, you know
commissioned
what?
by the people who own it.
A
Mhm.
McMansion isn't really a mansion. It's like a mansion as processed through McDonald's. You know what I mean? That's what a
Oh yeah, yeah.
McMansion is. So yeah, they
Trust
had
me, I am
this.
aware of it. Yeah.
I mean, this is at that time period when I wrote this. This was the heart of suburbia. I'd like to have a McMansion, and it's usually a house that where the rooms are no bigger, but they're just taller. You know,
Mhm.
and it's
Mhm.
kind of one dimensional. I don't know. So a New Year's party without alcohol. What the fuck? You know what I mean? I mean, really, that's not right.
But it's your inspiration, then how you turn this here, and then you were talking about the in-ground swimming pool, and this is on Long Island, I guess, right?
No, no, this is in Jersey when I
Oh,
lived in
this in
Jersey.
Jersey. Right, right,
Yeah.
right. Uh, I just find it super fascinating to read this story, which is I mean, there's horror elements in there, but then to read where it actually comes from. So this I find totally fascinating. Do you carry a notepad with you at all times,
I
or
never take
what?
notes.
Okay.
I do at times with the novels, and some of them are historical. I do research, historical research, but I'll do that. But as far as the stories go, and like I don't carry around a notebook. My feeling has always been, uh, if I forget it, it wasn't worth it anyway. So,
Mhm.
and then I keep my stories in my head because I don't want to have to rely on a notebook. So when I go and take my car to get my oil changed at Walmart or something, and I'm sitting there, I can take the stories out and work on them. And then, I don't need notebooks and my papers and all this other stuff. I tell you, that gets a little creaky when you hit 65, which I did this year. So, uh, you know, I might have to start taking notes eventually, but I
You
never
mean
did take.
the good old memory and all that?
Yeah, I mean, I never took notes. I never had notebooks, all that journaling and crap. I never bothered with any of it. Not that it's bad. I mean, for some people that works wonderfully, but I just don't. I just never needed it.
Mhm. This is fascinating to me. So you don't even when you wake up at night and you have a dream, you don't write that down?
No, I usually a lot of them I remember, and I've gotten a lot of stories out of dreams.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
because that stuff fades though. See, this is something that I really want to do next year. A dream journal right next to my bed when you're getting up and you're still in that realm that you fixate those things down on paper. Because
Yeah.
I don't know anybody who can be, I mean, I think it's a biological reality that that stuff fades. There is just, I think you're kidding yourself. I used to work with a guy who was a musician who was always stoned, and we would jam. We had a development deal writing songs, and he would come up with a good idea while he was stoned. And I said, "That's a great idea. Let's record it." He goes, "Nah, nah, I'll remember it in the morning." And I go like, "No, you won't." And he said, "If I don't remember it, it wasn't that good." And you know what? Surprise, he never remembered anything. So,
Well, I do remember certain dreams, and I use them a lot of times. I use them in stories. I've actually dreamed stories where I saw the words
wow.
scrolling down in front of me, like the words on a page scrolling down.
Wow.
So,
I'm bringing up here the Book of Dreams as we're talking about it. This is the cover of the Book of Dreams that contains also this story about the Dick that I forgot
86 Death Dick Road.
Death Dick Road. Yes, because it's about eggs, about evil owls, and the smartest man in the world that is who is very smart.
And
So
that's not me.
no, no,
That was
in
not.
that book it isn't. I mean,
No,
I don't
it's
know about you in real life.
no way. No.
Here we go. This cover is
That
actually real.
cover is done by KJ Parker, and the cover is actually for my story, actually,
Mhm.
which I didn't realize right away. Only later did I realize that.
Little bit low resolution. It's really it's a really cool surreal cover that really captures that story. I love it. That story is just I don't know. I'm a new fan, Jeffrey. If you're just tuning in, this is the Second Life Book Club. My name is Draxtor. We're streaming, and we have tons of people watching, and I got to monitor all the questions that are coming in. Oh, vitamin D supplement, Drax, will help with remembering dreams, says Ava Delaney in the local chat. So we got to check
Oh,
that
that's
out,
great.
Jeffrey.
Thank you.
Vitamin D, vitamin D. So where was I? Right. I think maybe it's already time to maybe read something. So, do you want to read something from?
Okay, now I'm going to tell you something here. This is
Yeah.
not an unpublished story. It's just a short
Oh,
story, so it would fit because the one I was going to read was too long. That was the unpublished one, but it's still good. You guys will like it, I think. All right.
no problem at all. But
And
hold on now.
one thing
Yes.
I wanted to
Go ahead.
clear up, that's 7 World Fantasy Awards, not 3.
Oh my God, we got to go back to.
Not to
I
make
was.
too fine a point of it.
That is very important. That is pretty significant. Um, so 7 World Fantasy Awards and Nebula, no Nebula Awards.
I got a nebula, yeah.
How important?
It's like a bunch of turds in lucite.
You mean the physical award that is on
Yeah,
your
it's
shelf?
cool. I mean, I was happy to win it. Yeah, I'm just kidding. A couple of Shirley Jacksons, the Edgar Allan Poe Award. Yeah, I got a bunch of. I'm just pushing that because I just want people to go out and buy that big collection, and all the stories that won those awards are in that collection.
So that's the collection that we're talking about that is coming in March.
No, this one that's on the table, the one with the spider guy in the head. The one that's coming in March is from Small Beer, and that's got new stories. This story is from that. The one I'm
Okay, so
reading is going to be
let's
in that book.
clarify. But this is a good point because, and I will reiterate this point a little bit later. What should people, if they're intrigued by your unique stylings, what should they what should they buy?
Buy early and
All of them?
often. Fun for the whole family.
I'm sure, with all sorts of A words and S words and F words.
Well, people complain about that sometimes. People complain about the fact that some of the characters in my stories smoke. I mean, what can I
Really?
do? It's what happens. The people complain that they smoke pot, they smoke cigarettes. I mean, I don't smoke anymore, but I know there's people who still do in the world. So what are you going to do? You know?
That I find quite bizarre because if you're capturing a certain milieu, it doesn't mean that you're supporting any type of conduct or the use of substances if you're describing a character.
Listen, you know what? You know how often that gets that goes off the rails, like people thinking that because you have a character who does something that's you. I mean, I can't
Yeah,
begin to tell you. The physiognomy is about a guy who's basically kind of like a fascist, in the beginning of the books.
yeah.
People, some people associated that like that was me because I wrote that character. So you can't, there's nothing you could do about it. You just got to go with the flow.
That is completely bizarre. The physiognomy, by the way, that is also on back order in Germany. I really wanted to prepare this. This is something the Well-Built City trilogy is, I guess, what you're most known for, or is that
Well,
the right perception?
well, that was out a long time ago. I mean, more recently, like the Shadow Year, that novel, The Portrait of Mrs. Sharbook, and this one, Girl in the Glass. I just had a novel out 2 years ago, the uh, Ahab's Return, which is a
All here on the
Ahab,
table. We have.
Ahab doesn't die at the end of Moby Dick.
Mhm.
He lives through the thing with the whale. The whale pulls him over the side, and then he makes his way back to Nantucket to discover that his wife and kid think he's dead because they read Moby Dick. So they moved to New York. Ishmael had written Moby Dick, and they moved to New York, and he goes there to find them, and that's how it starts.
Oh my God. Jeffrey, this is just such it's an incredible. I want to ask you about teaching later too, but like how what's the motor of your imagination? What is some of the fuel? And please don't tell me drugs because
No,
uh
no, listen.
I'm with Frank Zappa. I actually also am, people can do whatever they want, but whenever I get asked, I always point out that smoking weed, I do personally think it's a colossal waste of time, and I don't know anyone who gets stuff done. But I'm wondering what are the elements other than access to your, let's say, dreaming or just your observation of your daily life and sort of extracting weirdness out of stuff that other people don't even see.
Well, I was always when I was a kid, my dad read to us when I was like little, like 5 years old, 6. He read to us at night, and he never read to us kids' books. He only read to us like 19th century novels. So we'd be, listening to like Rider Haggard and Robert Louis Stevenson, and like I always say, I was the only kid on the block who knew who Theophile Gautier was. So that when he read them, I saw the pictures in my mind so clearly that I just wanted to emulate that, be able to do that. And from the time I was very little, I was always writing like stories, and they weren't any good, but I mean, I was always writing down stories and little books of stories and stuff like that. So it's been something I can't even trace back to where like what the initial impetus was, except for those things that he read to us, and how
Yeah.
vivid they were to me.
But what is interesting, you said earlier that your early stories were crap. I wonder when did you realize um, that now you're getting better? I mean, when is this sort of a switch internally, or I mean, I'm assuming, I mean, with me as a musician also, there's a lot of stuff that's comes from the outside. If you surround yourself with good people, meaning honest people, they will say, "Hey, this is garbage,"
Well, I
but
mean,
they will also say, "Hey, this is pretty good."
I remember the point where it was in the summer. I was writing, and it finally came to me. I guess I forget how old I was, but it finally came to me. I was sitting on the back steps, actually smoking a cigarette, and it came to me that uh, I could have as much fun revising a story as I did initially coming up with the idea. Actually, I could have more fun doing that. So
Mhm.
the minute I realized that revision was the answer, was the key, to like making these things more than just a pile. That's when things started to change. And I started publishing quite a few things then.
That is an amazingly a profound point. I think that really, folks, did everybody hear this? Because when I talk to other younger creatives, they everybody is so goal oriented in the on the first take. I mean, this applies to all sorts of different creative pursuits that I observe. That fo- uh, a lot of folks have expressed to me they derive no joy out of actually refining and editing, right? So they do one thing and they go, ah, that's garbage, and then they throw the whole thing away. So what you're saying is that you have to either have that joy or train yourself to make the editing process, that can be a grind, I guess, more joyful.
It's not even train yourself, it's just realizing it,
Hmm.
realizing how much fun you can have with it. Plus,
The
then
process,
as I
but
got
the process and not necessarily the outcome.
right, right. So the thing is like as I got better and I sold more stuff, I started working with really good editors. Ellen Datlow, Jennifer Brell at HarperCollins, I did my novels with, uh, Jonathan Strain and uh, Gordon Van Gelder and different editors, and the editors in that field are amazingly good. I mean, great. And so I learned a lot from them. I learned a lot about writing, especially from like Jennifer Brell and Ellen Datlow, who are my editors.
Ellen is coming to the book club, and I hope that I can maybe you come back and both of you guys, because she also really likes to swear. You're not swearing that much, Jeffrey, but
I'm trying to
so
keep it under control, man.
yeah, yeah, no, you're good. But when Ellen comes here, then we we'll let it all out. This is special thing, and when people get offended, I'll put something on the door and say, if you're offended by words, don't show up.
Well, I mean, I
Um,
grew up on Long Island, and there we'd
eh,
insert the word "fuck" in the middle of other words, like something was 750 fucking thousand feet long. You know what I mean?
okay, before I forget, a couple of questions, and then we'll read the story. Silas Merlin in the audience says, before you go back to sleep after the dream, while you are still in that in between state, relive the dream in as much detail as you can. When you wake up later, you will remember whatever you managed to capture when reliving it. I
Oh, that
guess
sounds good.
you're describing lucid dreaming, which
Yeah.
you can actually train. Silas is a fabulous artist. So, Silas, feel free to elaborate in the chat and I'll pick it up. Silas also continues, you still won't remember the original dream, but you will remember that immediate recollection.
Right.
Aha. So the trick is to force a process of recollection, then you'll remember that. Uh, Ursa says in the chat, I wrote my dream down, but in the morning there was nothing on the paper.
She's
That
still
is brilliant.
tell us she's still dreaming.
Ursa, are you sure you're here in Second Life with us at the Second Life Book Club? Maybe you're still dreaming. make make sure that you're actually here. Um, And Jeffrey Robbins on Facebook asks, "Hi Jeffrey, who are your early influences?" I mean, you mentioned them actually at the top of the show, magical realist, Marquez, maybe Borges. But what other
Well, if you're
influences would
talking
you
about
cite?
the earliest when I was a kid, I'm
Early?
talking about stuff like Curious George. You know, Curious George,
Yes.
monkey. Yeah,
Yep.
because that, you know what the thing
I
is,
have some.
the monkey, it started out, the story started out in one direction and always went some weird place. By the end, he was in a rocket ship, and then he was in the hospital getting ether and stuff, and you know, whatever. It I love the errant nature of those stories, you know.
Right.
Other things I read a lot of, you know, I read a lot of Kipling stories, like The Phantom Rickshaw was the first story that really ever scared me. And
Mhm.
you know, different short story writers when I was a kid. I remember this story from the school book that we had called the Death of Red Peril, which was, I forget who wrote it, but it's about a guy who had a caterpillar that battled other caterpillars. I was like, that's so fucking crazy, man. You know, so just different things along the line. I have a lot of writers I really like. It's hard to pinpoint. A lot of my colleagues that are writing now, I really like their work as well. You know,
I'm trying to look this up. The peril of the
death.
red red death. The story is about what is the short story Death of a Red Peril by Edmonds. Edmonds,
Yeah,
it
right.
says.
That's right. That's the one. Yeah.
Hmm.
I don't
Uh,
know even how it is now. I just remember it. You know, that's the way I remember it.
you remember a feeling of what that story gave you.
I
I,
thought it
I'll
was cool.
I'll compile all this in our show notes. The Death of Red Peril. There we go. Um, Yeah, so if you're just tuning in, this is the Second Life Book Club, and our guest is Jeffrey Ford and Ursa, who says that she was writing a dream down on paper and there was nothing on the paper, and we, of course, then mentioned, or you mentioned, Jeffrey, that she's still sleeping, and she says here in the chat that explains a lot. So, so we settled that one, and now, if I may ask you to stand up and walk towards the front of the podium
Oh
to
man.
read a story. You take your time. There's absolutely no rush. Um,
All right. How
you
do I
will
get up? I forget.
you press the stand button on the bottom of the screen,
Okay. All right. Yeah. Sorry.
and no problem. And for our in-world audience, we will now change our surroundings to match the theme of the book, which is called Big Dark Hole. And it's about somebody in a big dark hole, I guess. Um, so our friend Silas Merlin made us a little
Yeah, this is
cozy
great.
venue, a little
Oh,
bit
that
the
looks
mood.
fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. We're now, oops,
Whoa,
and you
whoa.
fell off the stage in the big dark hole.
Sorry. Oh wait, I'm like half the size. How do I get back up?
Just walk back up the stairs. Walk back up the stairs, and the
Oh, it
stairs
says on the side. I got it. Yeah, I
on the
see
other
it.
side. Yep.
This will be the last. This will be the last part of the interview. Me getting back on the stage.
Yeah, that's actually the highlight for folks. It's rumored that folks only come to the book club because they want to see prominent authors fall off the stage. So there you go.
All
Jeffrey
right.
is coming back, and I will move the book stand.
Whoop. Oh, I'm
Oh,
off again. What the? I'm sorry. I should have. I should have practiced.
don't worry.
Sorry.
I'm making an impromptu wall. We all need to build more walls, as we know. Some of the walls that we were promised were not built. And Angelica says in the local chat that was count one. Can we get two? Um, okay,
All
now
right.
there's a wall. You
I
can't fall
stopped
off.
moving and it's still going.
Yeah, yeah, go.
Okay. How
And
about I
let me.
stand here and read it?
That sounds perfect. I'm gonna move the stand right in front of you, right here.
Okay. Are we good?
We're perfect. And
Okay.
what are we hearing now, Jeffrey? What is this
I'm
story
going to
about?
read a
Set it up for us.
story. I'm going to read a story called Monster 8. Uh, it was initially published in Conjunctions magazine, which is a literary magazine that comes out of Bart College. And
Mhm.
I don't know how many people have seen it. So it's going to be in the new collection, the Big Dark Hole collection. Listen, I want to start by saying thank you so much for all you people coming. That's so wonderful. And I
Yeah.
appreciate the big dark hole too. All this extra work that you guys did. It looks fantastic.
Jeffrey,
All right, I'm going to start.
we appreciate you coming here. Here's Jeffrey reading from his new collection, Big Dark Hole.
All right, this story is called Monster 8. I ran into the local monster a couple of times behind the laundromat on my way home with clean clothes. He had a base of operations back there since it was only a short dash into the woods behind the place. That forest goes on for 100 miles. I don't know what he's a monster of. Everybody said he was definitely one, but I hadn't seen it. He was just a fat guy who sat at a desk made of plank and blue plastic milk crates. He had a hot orange scoop chair with 3 legs that he balanced on. For my money, he was just a sad sack. He was always looking at the woods over his shoulder, seeming to contemplate dashing back into them at the drop of a hat. A hairy motherfucker, though. You could stuff a mattress with just the crop off his back. And his conversation was self deprecating, but not in a humorous way. He was always apologizing for everything: the weather, his mood, the news of the day. A monster of sorry, I'd give him that. So after having said hello to him when leaving the laundromat a few times, one day I stopped and asked him why he was sitting back there in a parking lot no one ever ventured into save a drunk looking for a place to piss, maybe a curious kid on a bike every blue moon, or me heading home from the laundromat on the path through the woods. He seemed surprised that I spoke to him. His eyes widened, raising his brows, and deep flesh moved around the horns protruding from his temples. Granted, the horn thing was a turnoff. Like, what am I talking to, a buffalo? It's not a good look if you want to be taken seriously. So I had to get past that. I swallowed hard and waited for my answer. He grunted a little, and I could tell he was nervous. His legs shook, and it rattled the desk plank. I got business back here, he said. What's your business? I do my monster thing. Who pays you? Who's going to pay to get harassed by a monster? I'm a pro bono monster. Working for the good of the people? That's right. I want to create an epic experience for everyone. How do you do that? Get into their lives, and then I see what the biggest problem they have is, and I turn up the monster BS level to just above that. They battle the monster and survive, and then their real problems don't seem that difficult. That's the gist. What's monster BS? Could be everything from some light haunting, calling out their name in a spooky voice in the middle of the night, to shooting right up their toilet and taking a bite out of their ass. It's all in a day's work. Sounds rewarding. I heard you bit the head off the Miller girl. What was she, 16? Some collateral damage? That's not true. She's in town right now, still tweaking. The kid's got 9 lives. People tell all kinds of stories about me. My problem with the whole charade is that you're not scary in the least, I said. They're scary and they're scary. Right, and you're not either one of them. I got kind of a thrill from telling off the local monster. Not wanting that feeling to fade, I added, you're more pathetic than anything else. Okay, I could see where this is headed, he said. He stood up to his full height. He was tall, maybe 8 feet, and wide, with rippling muscles beneath the red sleeveless tee, and hair and fat. My obstreperousness wrinkled away in the shadow of his stature. He came around the desk and put an arm across my shoulders. What are you doing? I asked. Look, there's no longer any reason for me to go on with this. You see through me. But since you're not afraid of me, you wouldn't mind taking a walk in the woods. Where to and why? I may not be mythic, but I've got something mythic to show you. Well, I have to go through the woods anyway. What do you say you stop at my place so I can drop my laundry off? Then we'll check out whatever it is you've got going. Okay, he said, and led the way toward the boundary between the parking lot and the woods. I caught up with him as we crossed over. I heard him breathe a sigh of relief. We got on the path and headed northwest, where it would eventually lead to my place out in the sticks on the edge of the farmland. Side by side, we ambled onward at a long, slow gait. He complained about how out of shape he was, apologized for it, of course. I asked him if he could at least give me a hint as to what he would show me later. He stopped for a moment on the trail, paused on hips. Looking into the sky, he shook his head. All I can tell you is it's connected to the ideas of fulfillment and the growth of the spirit. That sounds like monster BS, I said. For real, that's what it's about. I'm taking a chance showing this to you. All right, calm down, I said. The woods became a forest, the canopy thicker and blocking more light. There were spots where sun came down, like a transporter beam from Star Trek, and puddled on the path, but there were shadows too, and they were extra cold. Somewhere along the line, his complaints about himself turned into a story. He spoke in cadence with our steps. Occasionally, purple finches darted above us. The trees grew taller as we went along, the oaks and pines like columns and spires in an enormous cathedral. I remember some real monsters, he said. For instance, my Uncle Ted. He was old school. Tear him up, pop off a head, no reason needed. You know, just a total hard ass. And he looked terrible, lumps all over him, a pig nose, nails that were claws, pointed teeth, a fucked up face. He'd show up at a party with a pair of long knives and leave the place looking like a bad night at Benihana's. Slaughter was his nickname among his friends. He ran with a crowd of other monsters who called themselves the Magnificent Seven. Seven monsters, all impressively horrible. Each of them had a special trait and each a nickname. There was Bite'em, who bit people 100 times in a minute. One with the name Shit Breath Academy. He just opened his mouth and at reality wilted. You get the picture. Seven monsters with more monster BS than you could shake a stick at. They were full of themselves, taking liberties with their mythic power, not to mention murder and mayhem in tall order. As they achieved the height of their power, there appeared on the scene a new kind of monster. He went by the title Monster 8, and he let it be known that he had come to defeat the Magnificent Seven. Monster 8 was different, more reptilian, and had the ability to morph into any human form he had ever seen. His feet were molded in the form of high heels. His flesh was pebbled in red scales. He could leap, run fast, and was strong, but his most dangerous asset was his voice and what it said. In the end, Monster 8 shut them all down, 1 through 7, talked them right out of their lives. Uncle Ted split his own head with a hatchet. It took Monster 8 7 minutes to convince the old dope he was better off away in the cosmic elsewhere. Once his task was complete, the seven were gone. He disappeared. No one knows where he went. Sorry. It said that he wanders the world, unable to die until 8 centuries have passed. I wanted to hear more, but we were approaching my house. Lynn was on the porch in her rocker. I waved as we came out of the woods and walked across the field. I could see her stand up and go inside. The moment I saw it, I knew exactly what was going on. She went inside to get her father's pistol. She knew immediately I was walking with the local monster. As we reached the porch, I started up the steps, but she pushed through the screen door with the gun out in front of her, aiming at my new associate. "Stay there," she said to me. "And you," she said to the monster, "you make a move and I'll drill you with all 6. "Have no fear, madam," said the monster and put his paws up. Lynn pointed her gun at me. She said, "Give me the laundry." She reached down the step and I reached up. She took the stack by lacing a single finger under the knot of twine at the top of the package. In her opposite hand, the gun wobbled and made me nervous. Once she had the laundry, she said, "I'm going to give you about 2 minutes to get that fucking thing out of here. Then I'm just going to start shooting. You come home with the local monster, you're out of your mind. Early onset, if you know what I mean. I can't believe I put up with 40 years of your stupid shit." "He's got mythic qualities," I told her. The monster nodded without lowering his arms. "He smells like an epic shit. I can't believe you can stand the smell of him. Move it along." She looked directly at me, and then her gaze went slowly out across the field toward the old white garage, and she winked. "Unload this walking turd and get back here for dinner. Hurry up." I turned to the monster and apologized for my wife calling him a walking turd. He shrugged and said, "Not uncalled for by any means." We stood out front for a few minutes, and I made as if I was unsure if I wanted to take the journey. When he started to get impatient, reminding me I had promised to go, I said, "Come to the garage with me. I have an ATV in there that we can take out into the woods. We'll go see your deal and I can get home quick. I do have an appointment to break a priest's legs this evening, so if we could pick up the pace, that would be fine," he said. We headed for the garage, a big building at the edge of the field beneath a white oak. I let him lead the way. "Your wife is lovely," he said. I quietly laughed. He opened the whitewashed door and stepped into the dark. "Hey, where's the light switch?" he asked. An instant later, I heard him get whacked by whatever she whacked him with. I guessed it was that big plumber's wrench, just by a twinge of a metallic ding as it cracked his skull. He went down like an 8-foot furry sirloin and slapped the cement floor. We worked together and had him strung up in chains in no time. In the middle of the garage, there was a large hole dug through concrete and 15 feet into the ground. Lynn emptied a can of lighter fluid into the hole. We shared a cig, discussed the clean, accurate blow to his head. Before the smoke was out, I tossed it into the pit. The flames took, and in no time he was awake and in agony at the melting of his flesh. The screams kept up for a while. The whole thing really stunk. Right when we thought he was finished and things simmered down to a sizzle and an occasional pop, Lynn called me over to the rim of the pit. She had been inspecting the remains from above with a powerful flashlight. I joined her at the edge and she said, "What's happening?" I squinted and could see in the harsh beam that the charcoal remains of the local monster was splitting open. We've done 3 of them so far, and none of them before has done this after roasting for 45 minutes, I said. "Yeah, this ain't right. Do you have the gun?" I asked. She pulled it out of her pocket, and as she did, the remains of the local monster, a flame blackened shell, split open, and something quick as a wink shot out, hovered up by the rafters. It was red with a long, flickering tongue. "Oh shit," I said, "it's Monster 8. No." "Plug it," I yelled. She fired, and a shot went wide through the roof. I grabbed her arm as we made for the door of the garage. It chased us out across the field toward the house. Lynn stopped twice in our escape, and each time fired a shot at it. It seemed she hit it twice as it was bounced back through the sky, a few yards with the impact of each bullet. We ducked into the house, ran upstairs to our small library, and shut the door. I pulled the copy of The Marble Dance in the first bookcase to our right, and the shelves opened like a door. We ducked and stepped into the darkness, and the bookcase closed behind us. In that cramped space, we held each other. Only once we were in there did it become clear that we should have left the gun outside. We heard him enter the room, heard him draw a chair up next to the shelves as we were that shelves we were behind. The flow of his reasoning was such that I was already convinced about early inconsequential points in an argument for suicide before I realized he was speaking at all. His bleak message was relentless. We each closed our eyes, drew nearer, and staked our love against his monstrous powers. Thank you.
Oh my God, Jeffrey. That was Jeffrey Ford reading Monster 8 from his upcoming collection, Big Dark Hole. This was big round of applause, please, in the room. This was I mean, not to say anything bad about anybody who read before, but this was by far the best reading that we ever had here at the book club. Am I right? Shall I leave the cave or shall I bring us back to the light? Leave the cave for the rest of the hour?
I'm down with the cave. I'm with it.
Oh my God, Jeffrey, thank you. This was really awesome. And people in the chat also said that this is awesome. And actually, Erica asked again the collection of short stories that you would suggest. Yeah, please take a seat
I'm
again.
coming.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Um, what collection do you suggest? And I know you recommended to me um,
Bound life.
the Drowned Life, but also now the name escapes you. Jesus Christ. Ev- um, Hell, something with
Oh yeah.
hell.
The that was the last one that I had out was A Natural History of Hell.
Natural History of Hell. I'm just looking here if we have it here on the table. I don't think we do. Natural History of Hell, The Drowned Life, and what I enjoyed, what I just finished today is The Crackpot Palace. So take your pick, and absolutely looking forward to this new collection. We are 7 minutes to the top of the hour. We can go over a little bit, and then we have our VIP post game that is not streamed, but we're just hanging out here with the people in world. So
Sure.
I do want to get to Girl in the Glass that I just finished. So Girl in the Glass is absolutely remarkable. It's set in the Depression era America, and people may remember that the eugenics movement was on vogue, which is the eugenics movement in a nutshell, um, stipulates that certain races are biologically inferior in intelligence, and that's why they can never succeed. And yeah, it's a theory, quote unquote theory. It's of course complete BS, but it kind of comes and goes. And in your story, Girl in the Glass, it plays a big role. Proponents of the eugenics quote unquote theory, um, they commit a crime, and this group of con men, of professional con men, they live like a family. They actually get involved and they want to solve this crime, and they help solve it with a whole gaggle of circus performers. And so this whole setup is absolutely brilliant, but it's so timely. And I don't know what my question is. I just want to tell you that this is really awesome because it's timely. There's a huge disparity in wealth between rich and poor because it's the depression.
Just
There
like
are
now.
exactly. It really is like you could have written this about the current moment, because all this stuff, black people, Mexicans are inferior. They're lazy by virtue of their genetic makeup. All this stuff is, you hear it today like you heard back then. And um, you actually also in the book, it kind of ends later after World War II, but World War II plays a role. And what people sometimes don't know, that the Nazi regime and Adolf Hitler, they took a lot of pointers from the eugenics movement and then incorporated it into their bullshit.
Well, Hitler in his office had the picture of Henry Ford on his wall.
Hmm.
And if
Hmm.
you wonder how Hitler came up with the death camps, he was a big fan of Ford's, and he was a big fan of the assembly line. So the
Hmm.
death camps are really an industrial way to kill people. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And
Yep.
so that was the interest. And Ford was a huge anti-Semite. I mean,
Hmm.
he was the one who had the money behind the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, that publication.
Hmm.
He saw that was published in a lot of different places at the time.
Which also has a revival, and actually the whole QAnon conspiracy is also really the basis of it is also the Elders of Zion stuff with
Yeah, yeah.
drinking the baby's blood and stuff. Yeah.
So when I started this book, I mean, what I really wanted to write initially was what was that? What I really wanted to write initially was a just a mystery kind of book, and I always liked. I couldn't write really like a hard case, like hard ass detective or anything. It's just not my personality. I loved The Thin Man by Dashiell Hammett and the old movies, so I wanted to write like a comic noir type of thing. But then when I started doing the research of the time period, I discovered the eugenics movement, and I discovered the Mexican repatriation, which
Right. That's
was,
another big thing. The Mexican
yeah, which most
repatriation.
people most
Right.
people don't really know about.
Explain a little bit what that was and
Well,
what happened.
they just decided because of the depression that the big problem wasn't that these money people fucked up. It was like we have to blame it on brown people and
Ah.
and immigrants. So what they did was they just started rounding up people, Mexicans, and sending them back to Mexico, even if they had American citizenship.
Hmm.
you know
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
uh and uh that's one of the things I discovered. I was like, wow, I had no idea about this. And then I got into the eugenics movement, realized where I had grown up on Long Island the was the epicenter of it.
So is that true? Because in the book, I mean, there is this group of people who are doing this type of research. This is where you grew up. This is actually was actually there. That's
It was on
amazing.
Long Island. And here's the thing: the place where they do the genetic research now, like reading the genetic code, is the same place that this eugenics experiments were done, at the same exact place in Cold Spring Harbor on Long Island.
Oh boy, I can
You
tell
know
you
who
that.
else? You know who else was involved in it? Was Bush's grandfather in
Yeah.
the eugenics movement.
Yep. Yep.
So
That
it
is
all
actually.
came
Yeah.
together for me. I was like, man, this is, and you could see that there was trouble at the border, and people were making all kinds of like anti-immigrant, grumblings and statement. This is back in 2004 when I wrote it. It came out in 2005. But you could see how pertinent it is once Trump gets in office, the stuff with the wall and all that bullshit, and all his dog whistles and so forth, these racial dog whistles.
I'm
I
not
mean,
sure if he's dog whistling. He's straight out whistling.
well, no,
He's straight out
no, yeah,
singing.
Now he's just dropping the other stuff. But look, what's happened is they've made the they've made the stuff like more polite in a way, like in the
Mhm.
discussion of it, in some instances, so that people in society can discuss it. But it's even worse now in a way,
Yeah.
with the QAnon and the the Proud Boys and all that stuff going on now. So, like I
Yeah.
told you before, when the going gets tough, the shitheads get going. Back then, you had the depression, and now you got the virus,
Mhm.
and a depression to begin, and also along with it. And when that happens, you got to watch. You really got to watch you know, these these groups.
The demagogues and people who
Yeah,
are
yeah.
sort of reviving these ideas that you thought were long dead. There is a guy here in Germany as well, Thilo Sarrazin, who wrote a book about the demise of the German culture because so many migrants are coming here and they're populating the schools and they're just genetically inferior to absorb this great culture of ours, Jeffrey, the Heinrich Böll that you love so much, and I too. We have that in common. A great author, but these ideas, they just come up time and again. It's dangerous and a little frustrating that people um, kind of buy into them. I mean, they bring up very easy solutions. But the Girl in the Glass, I just wanted to mention that before we run out of time. It's just a completely remarkable book. I think in the post game, if you could read a little bit, that would be awesome.
Sure,
Uh,
sure.
Before we end the live stream, there's a couple of questions, and I have questions about teaching as well, actually. But I'm just going to take Stella's question. What is the toughest or two toughest lessons on writing that you teach your students to what students to face? But basically, yeah, what do you tell your students as you're
Well, here's
training
what
your own replacement? Sorry, Jeffrey, I wrote this down.
I will just tell one because it's going to take a little bit. I don't want to go on too long about it, but the thing is that when young people, when they start writing, they want to say something profound, And the point of fiction is not to say something profound, it's to tell what happened. If there's going to be some profundity in it, it needs to be taken by the reader or found by the reader in it. You know what I mean? So instead of what some writers do is they set up their characters like puppets so that they can reach some point to lay out this profundity for people. And when the
Mhm,
characters are treated like puppets, they die on the spot, DOA, right? They're
mhm,
dead. And
mhm,
the other thing is that the profundity of it weighs the thing down. So what I tell them is, when you get an idea for a story, just take your hands off the wheel and follow the story.
mhm,
Don't try to direct it. It's counterintuitive in a way, where how if you're driving a car, you just take your hands off the wheel, let the car go where it's going to go. But that's what you have to do with the story, because what'll happen is, I mean, people think because they go to college and they take lit classes that a writer is injecting symbols and all kinds of stuff into the story, like they're filling cream donuts on the graveyard shift.
right,
Like, I'm gonna put
right.
one here, I'm gonna put one here,
So
right?
sort of like
But
really
that's
sort of yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
what happens is, if you just take your hands off the wheel and let the story tell itself, all you got to do is copy down. If you have the gifts of, like, if you've studied your writing and your grammar and stuff like that, just record what you see, record
Mhm,
what happens, and then
mhm,
the reader can bring whatever meaning to it they need to. The whole thing about fiction is, it's about bodies in motion through space and time, right? It's not you telling the reader what to think. It's telling the reader what happened. It's always about what happened, you
mhm,
know? And so
mhm,
let the reader bring that. And then if you do that, all that stuff that you think you need to put in, symbolism, leitmotifs, all that stuff will naturally come out in the piece from what the only word I can think of to use is your subconscious. I know that's kind of a word that's poo-pooed these days, but that's the best I can do to describe it. So,
mhm.
like, chill out, let the story come, instead of trying to direct it and making the characters into these puppets that are just going to want to lay down and die.
I think it may be hard. I mean, I remember when started studying music and I got into jazz, and I remember there was an old jazz guy here, Joe Vieira, and a young saxophonist was asking him, "Hey, Joe, what should I improvise over the diminished chord? I mean, when somebody plays a diminished chord, what should I improvise?" And then Joe said, "Well, why don't you just play the diminished scale, up and down or sideways or whatever?" And and then the student says, "Yeah, but that's really everybody does that. I want to do something fresh, something new." And Joe Vieira said, "The diminished arpeggio is like a good cup of coffee. Every morning it tastes good." So this is a slightly different point because he was basically, the student was, eager to come up with something super fresh that was never done, that kind of obsession with originality, I guess, which can be paralyzing too. I just wanted to add that. I mean, you're making a super important point, I think, about I guess, when it's but when these tools are crammed into students' heads, then you kind of you do you see your job as kind of cleaning house in these students' heads because maybe in other classes they're supposed to learn all that stuff,
Well,
all the
here's the thing.
symbolism to throw in. Oh, you got to throw this in on page 7. You got to throw
Well,
in a
here's the
metaphor.
thing with that. I mean, like Gardner, my teacher, he used to say, you know, all those things you think you got to do, you don't got to do any of that stuff. All you really have to do is tell a story. Any kid you meet can tell a story, you know, but you
Hmm.
just have to tell a story and tell it in the best way that you can. And that's
Hmm.
basically it. Because to me, fiction is portable Greek drama.
Hmm.
I mean, that's what fiction is. It became something that the masses could have because back in the day in the times of Greece, when they put on these plays, only so many people could see it. Only the elites could see it, right? And
Hmm.
what novels and fiction did was it took the stuff from the Greek stage and put it into a format where everybody could have it. Everybody could have access to it. I mean,
Hmm.
that's why Aristotle's Poetics can be used pretty successfully with fiction as it can with plays, for which he wrote it. But the same rules apply. And what's drama about? It's about bodies in motion through time.
Bodies in motion through time. We're actually out of time. Speaking about time, Jeffrey, this is absolutely has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much. People, please, big round of applause here in the room. We're going to go to the post game. We have Jeffrey until the bottom of the hour in the post game, and we can ask him some more questions. And this has just been incredibly inspiring. Thank you, Jeffrey, and thank you, audience.
Thank you,
And
Drax.
big thank you to our team, Strawberry running the camera, co-producing the show, Silas Merlin building this wonderful big dark hole. I just told him build a big dark hole, and this is what he came up with. I think is
I
pretty
want to
good.
thank them too, Strawberry and the creator of the
Silas is in
set.
the audience. Yeah, you'll see him. He looks like a duck.
Okay.
Um, Sometimes he looks like an aubergine, but today he looks like a duck. Next week is the last show of the year. And next week we have Anna Vaught, who has two books out that I have. She has more out, but I only have two. I have Saving Lucia and Famished. So Anna Vaught is a author from Britain, and she will come as a special trifle avatar. Okay, I didn't know what a trifle was. She wanted to be a trifle, and we made it happen. So that's next Wednesday, and then that's the last show. But hold up for 1 second, because the very last Wednesday this year, we will all get together with the audience and we'll just shoot the shit. Now I can swear too because you swore, and we're just going to share ideas and we'll share recommendations. We look at the year that was in reading and writing. Anything goes. I will be streaming it. So that's the last Wednesday of the year. Next Wednesday is the last big guest, but everybody is welcome. All the VIP guests and all the non-VIP people, like like my son Kaleo, for example, if he wants to come back. I mean, he's still sitting there reading your book. So that's it, folks, and I'll see you guys all next week at the Second Life Book Club.